Saraswati Jones, and I'm experimenting with a form of music that I call post-colonial rock. I play the ukulele.
Which you brought tonight?
Wonderful.
I did. Nice.
I'm Rupal. I live in Cambridge now. I'm originally from Tanzania. Our family now lives in South Carolina. I came to Boston to work at Harvard and do tuberculosis research at the School of Public Health. And I'm associated with AIDS closely. That's how I know the group.
I'm Sakina, and I'm from Pennsylvania, Strasbourg, Pocono, and I'm graduated from Harvard 10 years ago. I'm meeting again my dear friend Jaspal and Hardeep. And I just travel abroad for 4 months for the last 7 years and give talk different universities.
My name is Jahangir. I live in Cambridge, more specifically there. And I just finished up grad school.
I'm Open. I'm a second year doing a PhD in like disaster planning and urban studies. This is my second meeting here at Weddg. But this is a great topic to have a discussion on, so I'm really excited.
Subhash Segal, and I've been living in this area for last 17-18 years and attending these nice, you should say soulful meetings or discussions or thought-provoking ideas. And I had learned not only a little, but I had learned a lot, and not only learn, but I enjoy the music too. So today is, I'm especially looking forward to it.
Hi, I'm Shan. I'm from Delhi. Graduated from Berkeley. I'm working as a sound designer right now and a part-time film.
I'm Karthik. I come from Mumbai. I'm a chemical engineer by training, but I'm doing research in statistical physics at MIT. And yeah, I live in Cambridge, and I'm about to move to Jamaica.
Hi, I'm Dina. There's only certain people who can open this door. Please.
I did open it.
I think the person was not standing next to the door.
I didn't do anything.
So I'm Veena, I'm an artist. I go to the School of Museum of Fine Arts and I'm going to enter my graduate program. I did 2 years of diploma program. I was living at this room, former tenant. Yeah.
I'm Bashar. I'm a professional living in Cambridge.
Professional.
Professional living in professional liver.
I use role as a retired principal visiting to my son.
Everybody, my name is Sapon. I live in Cambridge. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I'm an engineer by day, and I go to grad
Right time.
Why do you say that? Can you just introduce?
I'm Rajiv, live down the street in Cambridge.
I'm Kritika, I live in Cambridge.
I know someone who does. Take it away. Come.
Is this thing correct now?
Yeah. I hope so.
Okay.
We'll get part of it.
Now we got the IT guy behind it. So
It got Bunty in there.
Yeah, exactly. I did it.
Nothing to press, right?
No, I have not. Okay. If it switches off, then. Okay, I guess I'll take it off. So basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about. That's why. Fixing the buzzer.
One person is good.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about Nusrat's life, some basic facts. I don't know how are people really familiar with him. Generally, people are pretty familiar with him. I will. I want to give a disclaimer. I was asked to give this talk because sometimes I do music stuff, but I feel my connection to Nusrat is very deep. But I've never been to a concert of his. I've never met him. I only know him through the radio and what I've read about him. So I'm hoping this conversation will be more of a conversation and less of me talking to you. So if people have things to add or say.
Umang?
Where's Umang?
Listen,
It's the CIA.
somebody else to get somebody else to get
Yeah, please. We're on this camera. Yeah, it's live casting. Yeah, so as I bring stuff up and people want to throw in information, please feel free to interrupt me. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to talk about Nusrat very briefly. We believe we have a singer coming, Hardeep, who sings ghazals. Hopefully, he'll sing some Qawwali tonight. Alpen will likely play tabla. I will accompany him in sarangi, and we'll try and do some Qawwali, hopefully, if he comes. What I'm going to do is first just give some basic facts about Nusrat's life. Then I'll talk a little bit about his party. So all the people who made up the party that you would see. So if you went to buy a CD of Nusrat, of Sufi music, it would say Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, and then it would say End Party. A lot of times people don't know much about the party, so I want to kind of talk about those guys too, because they're very important to what he did. And then I will end with talking about his music and his style and sort of the way that he rendered, Qawwali music. So first off, I'm going to throw out a couple of interesting and otherworldly facts, and I want you guys to see how many of them have actually been verified and unverified. So I'm going to put just a few facts out there, and you guys can tell me what you think is true or untrue. First fact. A number of Japanese followers of Nusrat considered him to be an incarnation of Buddha.
True.
True or false?
It's true.
Yeah, that is true. Second, Nusrat was in love with a woman who was married off to a boy in Sargodha. He was so heartbroken that he began to eat and eat and eat, eventually leading to his death.
No, false. False.
False?
False.
That is false. But this is believed by a number of...
He used to eat a lot.
But he wasn't eating... He wasn't...
coming to Kashmir restaurant and not only eating a lot, but what they call, the next bhanka gola or something. All that also he used to swallow. He was very huge.
Yeah. He's very big. If people haven't seen him before, here's a picture of him.
Yeah, I have seen him.
Everyone, most people, just in case.
I attended one of his concerts in Toronto.
Okay.
I attended in Boston.
There is a theory that I was told by a number of my Pakistani friends that, in fact, he fell in love with this young woman and it didn't work out, and so he ate and ate until he died because he was so heartbroken. False. Third fun fact. Of a devotee from Seattle, a Nusrat lover from Seattle, Washington, had so loved his music that he gave him a collection of his own collection: jazz music, Irish music, Native American flute, and world music. Nusrat went home and listened to it that day, came back in the evening and said he kind of liked everything, but he particularly loved the Irish music.
False.
True.
It's true. It's true. After listening to this was in 1992, by this guy named John Davies, who's a student at the University of Washington. He gave Nusrat a CD of Irish music, and Nusrat fell in love with the fiddle and Irish singing. Okay, we'll do one more. So Demi Moore had her first car accident while listening to Nusrat. She was driving down a windy country road when Dead Man Walking soundtrack came up. She was so moved by his voice that she let off the clutch, slipped on the wheel, and careened into a tool shed.
True.
False.
I hope it's
True. It's kind of false. She didn't have a car accident, but she nearly lost control of her car when she heard the Dead Man Walking soundtrack. But as you can see, his reach was far and wide. So I guess I'll talk about my relationship to Nusrat, so you can get a better idea of where I stand in understanding him. So when I was a kid growing up, in Quincy, I was born in Quincy, Massachusetts. I grew up here, and I didn't have a lot of good examples of South Asian music that I could really sort of connect with. Classical music really wasn't interesting to me. And I used to listen to college radio when I was a teenager, 12 or 13. And they had this 1 hour where they played world music on Emerson College Radio. And one day, it was called the Gyroscope. And one day they played Nusrat. He was doing a compilation with Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. And then there's another album with Michael Brook, and he had this song called Must Must, called Lost in His Work, and it had this really mean bass line. And Nusrat was singing, Mast Kalandar Ikkavirdi Had, you know the song? So that's the first time I heard it, and I felt like, wow, this is South Asian music, but it's also like I can connect to it. And I really, suddenly, I was into my music. He was Punjabi, everything. So around that time I had met Subhashi, and I used to visit his store a lot. And so, Subhash had tons of CDs of Nusrat, and so we used to go and talk a lot about him. And he told me a lot of stories about him, and I bought some CDs and tapes. And so I slowly began to understand Nusrat and his music. And at first, his voice is pretty incredible. I mean, his range is pretty astounding. I don't know if it's accurate. Wikipedia says that he has a 6-octave range. I don't know if that's technically accurate. I don't think any human being has a 6-octave range in their voice. But if anybody came close, it was definitely Nusratji. And his range and the style of singing that he could do was incredible. And so basically he is largely the reason that I got sort of into South Asian music at a younger age. So just a couple of facts about his life. He was born in Lalpur, Pakistan, now known as Faisalabad, on October 16th, 1948.
Jahangir's
From Faisalabad?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Yeah, you kind of see resemblance there.
Before you started eating all that.
Yeah, actually Jahangir said something about that, but anyway, you can say.
You should can you tell us more about Faisalabad or Lalpur, the history of it?
The history was made in the late 1800s. It was dedicated. Queen Victoria dedicated the town, and actually, the interesting fact about the town is that the way the bazaars are set up, the way the town is set up, it's supposed to look like the British Union Jack, where it's so there's a clock tower in the center, and then there's the big markets that sprawl off it. So there's 4 wide, broad markets, and 4 very narrow markets. So it's like literally designed as the Union Jack.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the main history of it.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the history of the changing of the name from Lalpur to
Saudi Arabia gave like a lot of money, I think in the 60s or 70s.
Okay.
And they were like,
Faisalabad. Right.
They were
Queen
beholden to
began.
them, basically.
Yeah, okay.
But before it was James Lal was the guy, Lalpur. And,
Okay. Because it did sound...
it's an officer or something.
General, I think was a general.
General or an officer in...
Same like a Montgomery.
Montgomery, like Sidewalk,
Yeah.
right?
See, these were the canal colony cities.
Yes.
Okay.
So when they opened up, clearing forests, established these canals.
Okay.
So these were new cities established by the Brits.
They were throughways, basically.
Yeah.
There's a throughway. So in present day, Faisalabad is it's like an economic hub that like feeds into Lahore.
Okay.
So a lot of supply, textiles get made. Any clothing made in Pakistan is made in that city.
Really?
So if you have anything from made in Pakistan, it's made in
Manchester of Pakistan is also
Lahore.
called.
Basically.
Okay.
So it's a very industrial town.
And that's the town.
That's the town. It's a nice place.
That's where he was from. He was born, interestingly enough, just a little bit after, more than a year after, I was going to say depression, partition. And it's, I feel like that's an important fact. It's very much reflected in his music. Because in my opinion, and in what I've read about him, and I'll just make the side note, it was very difficult for me to find a lot of information about Nusrat. Despite the fact that he was such a legend and revered by so many countries, I scoured the net multiple times over the past week. And the information was pretty much rehashing itself, told Wikipedia, told by the Encyclopedia Britannica, told by the article on his Angel Fire page. There are some books, but it's surprisingly little information about him. So, but what I can say is that, as a Punjabi American and somebody who cares a lot about, Punjab, whether it be Pakistan or India, I feel like Nusrat's music spanned the border. It went across, I'm not talking about just performing in India, but the songs that he chose, they spoke to Sikhs, they spoke to Hindus, they spoke to Muslims, they spoke to atheists, they spoke to everybody.
I just want to make a point on this, material on Nusrat. I don't know what the reason is. I also tried to look for books. There are very few. So I asked a friend of mine who works on Sufi music and Sufi poetry. I asked her, do you know any good books on Nusrat? And she replied, I know many bad books on Nusrat. So that basically tells you how much of rehashing there is. Please go on.
I mean, it's a philosophical problem we can discuss. I mean, it's partial. Yeah, there's a whole lot of part reasons for that, which makes sense in our framework of sharing together. So this is good. But yes, so right, like I was saying, I've heard recordings of him doing some Sikh shabads that were absolutely beautiful, and as well. Now, as far as I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, he was a Sunni Muslim. I don't think he was a Shia. But the kind of qawwals that he sang were Shia, largely. They're in praise of Ali. So already you can see that, in Punjab, this will kind of give you a historical idea of Punjab, these religious identities were very fluid. Sunnis, qawwal singer, no matter what their background was, would have to sing certain styles of music. And oftentimes they were Shia, because the Shia sort of had the edge in this kind of tradition. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure he and his entire party were Sunni. So, but again, a lot of the songs were Shia. So just another example of sort of the cross-section that he performed with. But let me talk a little bit about something that doesn't get much attention, which is his party. So there were, at any given time, 8 to 12 people in his party. And a party, for those of you who aren't too familiar with Sufi music, basically the setup for Sufi music goes usually one main singer or 2 main singers on a stage sitting like Umang and myself with this vest that Umang has, this exact vest, the South American sort of style. And sometimes they have these wool hats, they're very done up. And then there's people around them, usually one tabla player, which is a drum, this kind of drum. Unfortunately, there weren't too many that had sarangi because it had largely fallen out of favor due to the British. So instead it would be a harmonium, which is like a small piano that you pump with, it's like a pump organ. And there'd be a behind group called the clappers, and they would oftentimes sing the chorus of the songs. They would echo. You have it's a call and response. You have like a main phrase that you sing, and then you have people behind you who sing backup. Interesting enough, I was reading an article talking about the party, and when they named the hand clappers, instead of saying it said like chorus, and it should have said hand clapping, but they misspelled it and said handicapping. Again, this is Encyclopedia Britannica, or the online version of it. So, so of the party, this is like the most sort of. I'm going to give you the most. These are the gentlemen, and they were all gentlemen who were the most solid. And this is a snapshot of his party in 1983. So there's Weddg Mubarak Ali Khan, which is Nusrat's first cousin. He did vocals, oftentimes sort of traded off on lead vocals with him. There is Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, who is Nusrat's brother. He also did lead vocals and played the harmonium. There was Rahmat Ali, who did vocals and played a second harmonium, so 2 of these keyboards on stage. There's Maqsood Hussain, who did vocals as well, backup vocals. Then his nephew, who probably a lot of you know, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. And he's kind of gone on to carry on the tradition now that his uncle has passed away. And we'll play, hopefully we can play for you, is that 50 years? Okay, we'll play maybe a brief clip of a song that Nusrat did where you can hear Rahat singing. And his voice, he's just at that adolescent point where his voice is just starting to like come into being, so it sounds so different from what you're used to today. You wouldn't even think it was the same guy. I mean, it sounds like a 12-year-old coming into puberty. It's really funny, but it's him. There's a couple other people. One guy who played mandolin. There was Muhammad Iqbal Naqvi, who was called the secretary of the party. He was like their agent. There was Asad Ali. Asad Ali, who was also in the chorus and designated hand clapper. And then my favorite was Dildar Hussain. And Dildar Hussain was the percussionist. He played the tabla. And it was actually because of Dildar Hussain that I took up tabla as a kid. I don't know, are people familiar with him? Have people seen him before? He was the main percussionist for Nusrat throughout most of his career. He's also Punjabi, and the way, can I just demonstrate with your tabla? Be very, the way that, for Qawwali, actually, what do you want to show? Do you know how to play Qawwali? Do you know the setup?
Oh no, you do it.
The Qawwali style of playing tabla is a bit different. So the classical way usually you see people perform, or at a gurdwara or mandir, is they'll have a tabla like this, and they'll play twice. But for Qawwal, because it's oftentimes much more rigorous with the baya, they'll oftentimes hold it like this in their leg, or to the side like this, and so I'm not doing it correctly, but so it's held like this. So it's held in the lap, and it's played in a much more rigorous fashion. You use a lot more powder, and you do a lot more slides, and it's much more vocal. So when I first heard Dildar Hussain, I was blown away. I mean, the guy, his tabla is incredible, and the kind of interaction that he had playing with Nusrat was just phenomenal. He's still alive, and he does workshops. He actually sings as well. So what we'll do is maybe we can show you a short video of Dildar Hussain. Sorry, and then one other party member I do want to talk about who doesn't get as much of attention. He's also passed away. Is Farooq, was Nusrat's brother. And a lot of the qawwals that Nusrat actually sang were composed by Farooq. He's a very talented composer, had an amazing ear, also a wonderful singer. And he doesn't get as much attention, but as part of the party, he contributed a whole hell of a lot. And just something for people maybe didn't know to be conscious of.
And also, one of the things that Nusrat's father was actually one of the first qawwals.
Yes, Fateh Ali Khan.
We trained into classical music.
Right.
From Delhi Gharana,
right.
Where Nadeem's family is also trained in Tamras Khan.
Maybe Nadeem, you want to talk more about Delhi Gharana or that?
Yeah, I mean, I never knew that. I just knew that his father was a very learned scholar of music, Ustad Fateh Ali Khan, known as Qawwal, and they originally were from Jalandhar. And
sorry.
Yes. Then they migrated to Pakistan after partition.
Yeah.
Something. I mean.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing was that so Nusrat, when he was born and when he was growing up, his father said, "Don't do this Qawwali business, just become a doctor," which I'm sure so many of us are familiar with. But Nusrat, he couldn't stay away from his father's performances. And no matter what he did, you couldn't turn him away from it. And when he turned 16, his father had passed away. So in the Muslim tradition in Pakistan, there's something called chelum. And 40 days after your father or mother has passed, you perform at the gravesite. So Nusrat took the band and performed at his father's gravesite, and that was his first baptism by fire. And then people started acknowledging him as the new leader of the party at 16 years old. So if you can imagine from that young age, it's pretty incredible. So yes, maybe we can show you guys, if possible, could we just pull up, down here or something? Yeah. So I'll show you guys a video of Dildar Hussain, who's still alive, and you can hear his tabla playing. So here, there's this group out in western part of the U.S. I think they're from Seattle, and they're a bunch of like American kids who are kind of wear dreadlocks, and they're really into Qawwali, and they have this group called Tahir Qawwal, and their pronunciation is a bit off, but they're very devoted to Qawwali music, and so they probably got a lot of money, and met Dildar Hussain, and they hooked up with him, and so he's actually been sort of their guruji. So here he has one of the leaders of this Qawwali group playing the harmonium, and so Dildar Hussain and his two sons are playing tabla. And you can see, and when you hear the beats, you'll recognize, this is familiar. Why? Because you've heard the sound probably on so many Qawwal records. So I'll just play just a minute or two of this.
Escape. You see, maybe the audio.
Okay.
Sorry.
There you go. Okay. People see okay? That's Dildar Hussain, and that's his two sons. That's Tahir Qawwali, the leader of that group. This is a very famous Qawwal, Ali Mola, Haq Ali Ali. You can see the way that he holds the bayan, similar to what I was showing you. It's very deep, and the bayan that they use is made of wood. I didn't mention that. We'll speed it up.
Yeah, you're right about the beat, you know, it's
familiar, right?
Yeah.
It's that.
Eka.
And so, just for those of you who aren't too familiar with Qawwali style music, a Qawwal will start out very slow. Each song lasts about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the singer. Sometimes it can go longer. It starts out very slow, usually with the vocal performance, and then there'll be some phrases that are repeated over and over again, and people clap, and it's almost like chanting. And then there's poems oftentimes that make up the verses, oftentimes about saints or about heroes, depending on the Qawwal. And as the verses are repeated, the Qawwal speeds up and gets faster and faster until it becomes a really furious music of, sort of mystical devotion. So let's bring this here. Now I'll show you. This is one of my favorite tracks by. This track isn't just by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. It's a combination of my Dada Guruji, Sultan Khan Sahab, and
Pukar?
Yeah, from the CD Pukar. I first heard in this house when I was a teenager, and basically after Nusrat Ji passed away, my Dada Guruji always wanted to play with him. So what he did was he went to a studio and took 3 of his songs and recorded sarangi over the songs. But they did it in such a way that it sounds really natural.
Very well done.
And it's very well done. But the song will go here it's called Ali Mola. It's very beautiful piece. Unfortunately, I hope you all can hear it. But this song will give you an idea of the party, because the whole party is there for this. It's one of his early recordings. And you'll hear Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan singing. And you'll be surprised at how different he sounds at the age of, I think 14 or 15. Let me just pull it up here. Has anybody met him or seen him in person, been to a concert? Want to talk about it while I'm...
Yeah.
What are your impressions of him? What is it like to meet him?
I first heard Nusrat Ali's 1978-79. I was going to a kabaddi game.
Kabaddi?
From London to Birmingham with president of Pakistan Kabaddi Federation, Khwaja Ali Ahmed.
Acha.
So as we were traveling in the car, he put this tape. And in a car you hear, and we were so mesmerized. We didn't notice when we reached Birmingham. All through the Kabaddi festival, I was just thinking. So I told Khwaja, listen, you have to give this tape to me.
Yeah.
So then we came back to London, went to Southall, and there was only one show those days that carried any. There was some company called Gramophone Company that carried Nusrat's tapes.
Yeah.
So I asked him to order all of his tapes.
Achha.
Then over the years, whenever Nusrat came, he stayed with a friend of mine.
Okay.
In Birmingham. So over the years, I met him many times.
Yeah.
And had some very interesting discussions with him.
Yeah.
On the music, why he started singing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I respected Nusrat a lot, because he really took up, Punjabi. Like he said that Punjabi, I asked him, he also mentioned something to you also, that what is his most preferable language where he likes to sing it.
Yeah.
He says, of course, Punjabi.
Yeah.
So I said, why? He said, because Punjabi is language of marfat.
Language of?
Marfat. Of enlightenment. So I said, what is his second most favorite language? He said, Farsi.
Achha.
Because that is also a language of marfat. So then I said, well, how about Urdu? He said, yaar, yahan to phase hue gana padta. Then majboori mein gana padta. So like, especially in Pakistan, it was important for him to take that stand because there Punjabi is considered the language of the lowly people.
Right.
It's the, if at your home you speak Punjabi with servants amongst each other. So like although it is the language of 70% of Pakistanis.
Right.
But it's not considered a language worth anybody.
Right.
So it was really very courageous of him.
Yeah.
And then off and on we'll have like one of the most memorable discussion I had with him was about his music. So I had some misgiving with his Qawwali being jazzified or being rockified. So I said, like Khan Sahab, you shouldn't do it. I said because it lowers your level, because if people want to appreciate you, they should appreciate you on your own terms. Like when I go to a classical concert in symphony, I don't expect Bhairavi or Bhairavi. So this whole notion that somehow Indian music has to be modern, and this notion of modernity, that is just jazzify it or rockify it, then it becomes modern. I said, I can't accept it. So of course, first he was saying, I really don't know these young kids. They do this thing, they add this rhythm section to me, so because it becomes popular and so. So I said, well, Khan Sahab, that can't be an acceptable answer. So I said, we should listen. And I said, the second problem with your music is, all your themes are old. As you talk about Pangat, those Pangats don't exist. I said, the value of the kalam that you sing, for example, Bulle Shah, Sachil Sarmast, Fareed, Shah Hussain, they were contemporary. They were dealing with problems of your time. So the content of your music is obsolete. So I mean, it is okay, but in terms of, if you really want to be serious about music, you have to modernize it in terms of form as well as in content.
Yeah.
So that really excited him. So we had many discussions about it. And then he said, like when they really got into it, he said, well then why don't you write a Qawwali for me? I said, okay. I said, I'll write one. And then unfortunately, that Qawwali, I did write one and that never got sung. So a group in Australia actually recorded that Qawwali.
Okay. Yeah.
Will you sing it for us today?
Yeah, sure. But he was very open-minded.
Yeah, his so basically his thing was that he was always like a child. People said that his approach to everything was like a young child. He loved to see new things.
And he was so simple. One time we went to Cologne. In Germany, he was having his concert there.
Yeah.
And at this club, And a couple of guys in his party wanted to have, a glass of beer before that.
Yeah.
And they were so innocent, they didn't even know how to ask about it,
Yeah, I can.
So then, so the guy who was with them, he said, these guys want a glass. I said, no problems. I went to the guy, I said, listen, what the hell? But these guys were like very innocent people.
Right.
And a lot of times I worried, and Khan Sahab also talked about it, a lot of people did take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Because, but anyway, I have a great memories and great admiration for Sultan Khan. Single-handedly, he did a lot for Punjabi culture as well as for
Yeah, I think his work with other artists. I feel like his collaboration was always on the level of an artist. Like he never compromised in what he did. His voice was always the same, whether he was singing classical, Qawwal, or with Michael Brook. But what is interesting, and I'll before I show you this video that I've now found, is that so Nusrat he left Pakistan and spent a lot of time in the UK, Birmingham, and a lot of people think that as he got older, his health declined. In fact, when he turned around 43, he actually had a doctor that would come with him on tour because he's very obese, and his eating habits were excellent, and his health was. But because of all the years before that of abuse, he had to get kidney transplant, and he died of cardiac arrest, which is very sad. But yeah, that's one myth, is that his health got progressively worse. It didn't. It just his earlier habits sort of caught up to him. But what is also sort of a myth is that he just loved to eat and ate all the time. But I think one of the biggest problems was that he was part of this group called Oriental Star Agencies. And they were like the largest sort of South Asian music production company in the world. They were based out of the UK, and they distribute hundreds of artists, in the 70s, 80s, and I think part of the paradigm for a lot of South Asian businesses at that time was to make as much money as you can as quickly as possible. And when they saw how big of a thing Nusrat had become, they really milked it. And I was just reading part of a person who was a close friend of his wrote a small memoir about his life and said that Oriental Star Agencies basically overbooked him for years. They're a very relentless manager. I mean, he was touring more than some 30-year-old punk bands would tour in the U.S. And playing night after night, sometimes 2 shows a day. And this is a guy who has to use a cane, get carried on stage, and always sitting, always eating. So the lifestyle for him was also very different. He's a very simple person. He was very quiet. He didn't talk a lot. He was very very approachable. And so he really didn't know how to fight for himself in many ways. And so for all the good music that Weddg has put out, as his manager, I think the ultimate sort of feeling is that they failed him, and were part of the reason that he was driven to become so unhealthy. That's sort of one thing. And also, before I show you this movie, and we'll maybe open up the discussion after this, I just want to talk about also his foray into the modern, not modern, I shouldn't say modern, but like Western music and how that happened. So a lot of you might know there's an artist called Peter Gabriel, and in 1982, Peter Gabriel was in the African continent. I think he was in Mali. And he was like, oh wow, I'm doing all this great music, I should start some kind of like a conference or a band. We should do something with this. Yeah. Collaborate with a couple of darkies and put some English music together. So he set up this festival called WOMAD, where they took artists from around the world and encouraged them to give workshops and play together and do experiments. And so out of WOMAD, he discovered, so Nusrat at the time was in Birmingham and with Oriental Star Agencies, and his music was being heard in the UK, and Peter Gabriel heard some and he liked it. So I think around 1985, 86, people can correct me if the date's off, but I think the date's right. He said, oh, let's get this guy over and just do some recordings. And then after that, it's all history. He got him to sing on The Passion of Christ, which was huge. And then he collaborated with Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam on the Dead Man Walking soundtrack. And then he did this Night Song project with Michael Brook, then Must Musta, and the Lost in His Art album.
Last Temptation.
What did I say?
Passion.
Oh, did I say The Passion? Sorry.
Yeah.
I've got my biblical reference.
Yeah.
But ultimately, his output, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the Qawwali singer with the greatest number of albums. His output was over 125 albums in his lifetime, which is 49 years. So that's like almost 3 albums a year.
But one of the things, he was always very emphatic. He said, I'll always be thankful to the people of Faisalabad and that villages, because they are the ones who really made him what he.
Oh yeah.
That for years and years, day in and day out.
Yeah.
They are the ones who really supported him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would not. So, like, he always talked about.
Well, he oftentimes would say, I don't want to. My favorite concert is in my hometown, or my father's Jhelum, or and that's where he felt the most comfortable. And even to more add to that, just look at his personality.
No, and also he said from the people from the Dwan.
Yeah.
They're the ones who were so from that Jalandhar area.
Yeah.
They were the ones who supported him. I mean, you're laughing, but I'm saying it because people connect to something, So
Of
that
course.
connection was very important. That
Yeah.
support they gave him was because of that connection of that, that ethos, that area,
Yeah.
and they knew each other.
Right. Yeah.
So not only that, a lot of these people around Faisalabad they actually moved from
Dwan.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, villages.
Yeah.
Tons
Right.
of villages,
Yeah.
after partition.
Right. Right.
British
So that
thing,
was
yeah.
that was his base,
Yeah.
Right.
and he really never forgot that.
Right.
He always talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was big. And then basically WOMAD and Real World Records, he did a lot of collaborations with them. And I think just before he passed away, he was looking to collaborate with a jazz singer, but it never happened. So now I'm just going to play you a track. This is my favorite track, Ali Mola. I'm just going to play you just a bit so we can maybe discuss, people can share their experiences. But I want you to hear it so you can hear his party and what he did with Sultan Khan Stab.
Actually, if you can play a bit longer, it's because the space is really.
I know. Do you have
divided.
speaker, like speakers?
I don't know where the CD is.
Okay, but do you have speakers, computer speakers? Like
No.
Okay. So try and hear this, guys. Just I don't know what to tell you. Do your best.
Maybe you can put it up there.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have to turn it up.
That's Sultan Khan.
Very nice overlapping.
Yeah.
Blending is really excellent.
This is an exaltation of Ali. And the rag is Darbari, in case you're interested. That's his brother. I think it's Philip. Sultan Khan.
So Sultan Khan also started as a vocalist.
Yes.
Then he moved to sarangi player.
Usually it's opposite. Usually sarangi players become vocalists because they can't make any money out of it. Listen to how long he holds this note.
Yeah.
Here's Rahat. This is Rahat Fateh Ali Khan.
This is.
Can you imagine?
This is
Rahat Fateh Ali Khan.
He's a young kid.
Yeah. This is my Dalaga music.
I think this is the finest tribute I've heard to Nusrat.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Both at best, you know.
Oops, that's the end of the track. Well, the end of this clip.
Yeah.
So, does anybody want to share anything or talk a bit about his life or maybe something they know? Z?
Better you sing, man.
I'm not gonna. So Nadeem Saab is here. He's gonna sing for us.
Yeah, in a minute. You know?
In a bit.
People dance during his performances.
Yeah.
People do all kinds of stuff. I mean,
That was the first time in Boston when they had his program in that symphony.
Yeah.
where people throw the money and dance. But otherwise, in that symphony, never was a record that somebody will stand up and throw money and dance. First time the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan came and he break the record.
If you watch some videos from Pakistan, Sufis, they do the spinning like the darwish.
Yes, beautiful.
And they'll just put their hand, they'll just spin.
This is related to getting faster and faster.
Right. No dizziness, just spinning.
Another joke we used to crack because being Punjabis, we always used to crack. So I always say, Khan Sahab, when you sing, when you talk in Urdu or sing in Urdu, sounds like you're telling a lie. He said, yeah, I also feel like that.
But one of his Urdu songs, we all fell in love. I was there almost 13 years ago. With my Harvard students, and they all fell in love.
Which song is this?
One of the songs is
Afri. That's a beautiful song.
He sang so nicely.
You want to sing that?
I'm not really prepared to sing.
Only one or two lines. One may not be remembering the complete song.
I don't have it.
How about Nadeem bhai? Akhiyan dig diya.
I request.
वो असल में मैंने तैयारी नहीं की हुई उस्ताद की जो है ना वो एक बिल्कुल डिफरेंट है
It is hard to sing after he was singing. That's the problem. Well, we can forget that he sang. That's fine.
We don't have harmony. Only sarangi.
Only sarangi.
Yeah.
I have. Let me bring that.
You have?
Keyboard in there.
Acha?
It's in your car?
Yes. In my car. Let me bring that.
Okay.
Probably. We can do something.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Do
you mind? Yeah.
Let's bring that.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, people talk about.
So, does anybody want to share anything? Concerts, or who has been affected? Who has felt profoundly affected by him, or in any sense?
Yes, I was. He's always on my head. I have a little funny story.
Acha?
The first time I heard him, I went to Pakistan in 1993. So it was playing in the car. This song, Akhiyan Deekniya. But somehow I thought he was saying Makhiyan Deekniya.
Makhi di roti. No.
She could relate that because she was in Pakistan.
I'm from Lahore. And probably on Food Street.
Honestly, we were in the mall road and we were going from mall to Kent, somebody's house, and we were in their car. And this is the first time I heard the song.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they make a song of Makhiyan Deek Diya, Makhiyan Deek Diya. You know, because I never heard it before. I was living upstate New York in a small town. I heard Punjabi songs. This one was my first introduction. So Fateh Ali Khan.
Thinking about flies waiting for it.
And actually, everybody's like we have almost all of his CDs on our site, apnaor.com. We've got all Nusrat's CDs there online. So if anybody wants to.
He sang a beautiful Punjabi song. You know that song? Beautiful song.
What is the line, sir?
Go ahead, sing it.
No, I don't. I'm not. My Punjabi is not like that.
Just say the
We can. I'll put it on.
Find
in
it.
hers.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's a poem by Kumar Batalvi.
Yes.
माए ने मेरे नैना दे विचों विरहा दी वर्क पवे.
There was a time in film industry they had Qawwali was the reigning thing. And after that, Nusrat really bring back the Qawwali again into the main music.
Actually, before him, Sabri brothers, they were very well established in Qawwali. But with the rise of Nusrat, Sabri brothers then.
They're also before that, Aziz Nazan was there. Aziz Nazan and his party was very, very good.
The Sabri brothers were excellent too.
The Sabri brothers.
They're
I spent a lot of time with the older brother Sabri also.
Sabri, Sabri, but they were very known.
Yeah, very known. Yeah.
But that was years before his time, and these guys all came after.
Hard to get into. From a movie?
Yes,
He's playing the guitarist, a double player. He might be in a movie. It's an old Punjabi film.
No, this is a poem by Shiv Batalvi.
Yeah.
In the 70s he wrote this.
In the 70s?
Yeah.
That was earlier.
He was in the 70s.
Okay. Pakistani music. Movie music quality. This the boss is a style. The old subwoofer.
That's the first thing. Crank it up and that's it.
Yeah. So why don't we get? Why do you want to play? Yeah. We'll start doing a play together.
Yeah. Good. And Nadine can join you.
Nadine can join it.
Yeah.
Good. And we have a lot of good food together also. In Birmingham.
No end of that. Yeah, sure. Those are just my notes. They might not be very copious.
Want you to record it?
I should vote finally.
When is it before?
October 6th.
I can change it.
C sharp?
Yeah. You can change it, or I should change it?
I can't really.
Yeah.
C sharp.
I can take it. Can you take it higher?
Can you take it higher? Is that possible?
Lower or higher?
If you can take it a little higher, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll put the thumb first. Yeah, so.
Shifting guys.